So we're still on the chapter, The Master and Narendra. We are still on Sunday, March 1st, 1885. And we're on page 710. There was a king who used to listen daily to a pundit's exposition of the Bhagavata. Every day at the end of their study, the pundit would ask the king, "O king, have you understood what I've said?" To this question, the king would daily give the same reply: "Sir, you had better understand it yourself." Each day when the pundit returned home, he would ponder the meaning of the king's words. He was a pious man devoted to prayer and meditation. Gradually, he came to his senses and realized that the only real thing in the world is the lotus feet of God, and that all else is illusory. He felt dispassion for the world and took up the life of a monk. As he was leaving the world, he sent a man to the king with a message: "Yes, O king, now I have understood. But I do not look down on worldly people." He said, "Oh, but do I look down on worldly people? Of course not. When I see them, I apply the knowledge of Brahman, the oneness of existence. Brahman itself has become everything. All are Narayana himself. Regarding all women as so many forms of the Divine Mother, I see no difference between a chaste woman and a streetwalker. Alas, I find no customers who want anything better than Kalai Pulse." Kalai Pulse is that black doll, which is kind of like tasteless probably. "No one wants to give up lust and greed. Man, deluded by the beauty of woman and the power of money, forgets God. But to one who has seen the beauty of God, even the position of Brahma, the creator, seems insignificant." A man said to Ravana, "You have been going to Sita in different disguises. Why don't you just go to her in the form of Rama?" But Ravana replied, "When I meditate on Rama in my heart, the most beautiful women, celestial maidens like Rama and Tilotama, appear no better than the ashes of a funeral pyre. Then even the position of Brahma appears trivial to me, not to speak of the beauty of another man's wife. Alas, I find that all customers here seek worthless Kalai Pulse," that's that black doll. "Unless the soul is pure, it cannot have genuine love of God and single-minded devotion to the ideal. The mind wanders away to various objects." To Manmohan, "You may take offense at my words, but I said to Rakha, I would rather hear that you had drowned yourself in the Ganges than learn that you had accepted a job under another person and became his servant." You might say, why? What's wrong with that? Because you lose your freedom. And sometimes you're compelled to lie or to not be transparent because you've got a person over you who's watching what you're doing. You lose your freedom, and he might say, tell him that, even though it's not true. So he really couldn't stand it when people had to be under the rod of someone else. One day, a Nepalese girl came here. She sang devotional songs to the accompaniment of the Esraj. When someone asked her if she was married, she said sharply, "What? I'm the handmaid of God. Whom else should I serve?" How can a man living in the midst of lust and greed realize God? It is very hard for him to lead an unattached life. First, he is the slave of his wife. Second, of money. And third, the master whom he serves. When Akbar was emperor of Delhi, there lived a hermit in a hut in a forest. Many people visited the holy man. At one time, he felt a great desire to entertain his visitors. But how could he do so without money? So he decided to go to the emperor for help, for the gate of Akbar's palace was always open to holy people. The hermit entered the palace when the emperor was at his daily devotions, and he took a seat in the corner of the room. He heard the emperor conclude his worship with a prayer: "Oh God, give me money, give me riches," and so forth. When the hermit heard this, he was about to leave the prayer hall, but the emperor signed to him to wait. When the prayer was over, Akbar said to him, "You came to see me. How is it that you are about to leave without saying anything to me?" "Your Majesty need not trouble yourself about it," answered the hermit. "I must leave now." But when the emperor insisted, the hermit said, "Many people visit my hut. So I came here to ask you for some money. Then Akbar said, why are you going away without speaking to me? The hermit replied, I found that you were a beggar. You too prayed to God for money and riches. Thereupon I said to myself, why should I be a beggar? Why should I beg of a beggar? If I must beg, let me beg of God. Narendra. Nowadays, Girish Ghosh thinks of nothing but spiritual things. Master. That is very good. But why is he so abusive? Why does he use such vulgar language to me? In my present state of mind, I cannot bear such rudeness. When a thunderbolt strikes a house, the heavy things inside the house are not much affected, but the window panes rattle a little. Nowadays, I cannot bear such roughness. A person living on the plane of sattva cannot bear noise and uproar. That is why Hridoy was sent away. It was the Divine Mother who sent him away. During the latter part of his stay, he went to extremes. He became very rough and abusive to Narendra. Do you agree with Girish about me? Narendra. He said he believed you to be an incarnation of God. I didn't say anything to answer to his remarks. Master. But how great his faith is, don't you think so? The devotees listened intently to the master's words. He was still seated on the mat, spread on the floor, with him by his side, and Narendra in front of him. The devotees were sitting around. After a few minutes, he said to Narendra tenderly, my child, you will not attain God without renouncing lust and greed. As he said this, great emotion welled up in his heart. Fixing on Narendra an earnest and tender look, he sang, oh, we are afraid to speak, and yet we are afraid to keep still. Our minds, O Radha, hath believed that we are about to lose you. We tell you the secret that we know, the secret whereby we ourselves and others with our help have passed through many a time of peril. Now it all depends on you. This was a really harsh time in Narendra's life. His father had died. His family was literally at the point of starvation, and his relatives, his father's relatives, were suing to have the house. So basically, Narendra's family would have no money because his father was deeply into debt. So they had to pay off his debts with no money, and his relatives were trying to take the house. So there was it was a horrible time for him. He was supposed to be taking his law exams because he was quite a brilliant student, but at the same time, he just was. It was a very tempestuous time. So he was about ready to take off on pilgrimage to Gaya. And Sri Ramakrishna was really afraid that he was going to come there, become some sort of mendicant, and not come back. So he knew about this. This is why Sri Ramakrishna says, with our help, have passed through many a time of peril. Now it all depends on you. And Vivekananda, in his reminiscences, talks about how Sri Ramakrishna knew his intent and was speaking to it, and he could feel this enormous love from Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna seemed to be afraid, lest Narendra should leave him. Narendra looked at the master with tears in his eyes. A visitor who was there for the first time heard and saw this. He said to the master, Sir, if one must renounce lust and greed, then what shall a householder do? Master, you may enjoy lust and greed. What has passed between him and Narendra, is no concern of yours. Mahimacharan, a householder devotee, heard everything and sat speechless. Master, to Mahima, go forward, push on. You will discover the forest of sandalwood. Go farther and you will find the silver mine. Go farther still and you will see the gold mine. Do not stop there. Go forward and you will reach the mines of rubies and diamonds. Therefore I say, go forward. Mahima, but sir, something holds us back. We can't move. Master, with a smile. Why? Cut the reins. Cut them with a sword of God's name. The shackles of Kala, or time, are cut by Kali's name. Every now and then, the master cast his gracious look on Narendra. He said, have you now become an experienced physician? Quoting a Sanskrit verse, he said, he who has killed only 100 patients is a novice in medicine, but he becomes an expert after killing 1,000. That's nice. Was the master hinting that Narendra, even though still young, had had many painful experiences in his life? Narendra smiled and kept silent. It was afternoon. The devotees were seated around the master, listening to Nabai Chaitanya singing. Suddenly the master left the room, but the music continued. M accompanied the master. Shamakrishna walked across the courtyard and entered the temple of Radhakanta. He bowed before the images. M followed him. There was some red powder in a tray. The master offered a little powder to the images and bowed down again. Next, he proceeded to the Kali temple. Passing up the 7 steps, he stood up on the open porch and looked at the image. Then he entered the shrine, offering red powder to the Divine Mother, and saluted her. As he left the temple, he asked M, "Why didn't you bring Babaram?" That later Swami Premananda. "Why didn't you bring Babaram?" Shamakrishna returned to his room, and accompanied by M and another devotee carrying the tray of red powder, he offered a little bit to all the pictures of the gods and goddesses in his room, but not to those of Jesus Christ and himself. Then he threw the powder on the bodies of Narendra and other devotees, and they all took the dust of his feet. I'm wondering, was that holy? That day, it's obviously the springtime, so maybe it was that the time of year where they throw powder on each other or paint or some sort of color thing. Why would it? Anyway, speculation. In the cool shade of the late afternoon, the devotees walked about in the temple garden, leaving the master and M in the room. The master whispered to M, "All say that they meditate well, but why is it so different with Paul too? What do you think of Narendra? He is utterly guileless. Just now he is faced with many difficult family problems, and so his spiritual progress is a little checked, but it will not be so for long." Narendra was arguing on the veranda with a Vedantist. Now and then the master went out to look at them. As the devotees gathered in the room, he asked Mahima to recite a hymn. Mahima chanted a verse from the Mahanirvana Tantra. "We worship the Brahman consciousness in the lotus of the heart, the undifferentiated, who was adored by Hari, Hara, and Brahma." Hari is Krishna or Vishnu, Hara is Shiva and Brahma. Mahima recited a few more hymns, and the last one to Shiva by Shankaracharya, that compared the world to a deep well in a wilderness. Mahima was a householder. The hymn thus ran, "O great God, O thou auspicious one, with the moon shining in thy crest, slayer of Madana," who is, I believe, the god of love, Cupid in other words, "slayer of Madana, wielder of the trident, unmoving one, Lord of the Himalayas, O consort of Durga, Lord of all creatures, thou who scatters the distress of the fearful, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. O beloved of Parvati's heart, O thou moon-crested deity, master of every being, Lord of hosts, O thou, the Lord of Parvati, O Vamadeva," another name for Shiva, "self-existent one, O Rudra, wielder of the bow, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. O blue-throated Shiva, whose ensign is the bull, O five-faced one, Lord of the worlds, who wears snakes upon thy wrists, O thou auspicious one, O Shiva, O Pashupati, O Lord, Lord of Parvati, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. O Lord of the universe, O Shiva Shankara, O God of gods, thou who dost bear the river Ganges in thy matted locks, thou the master of Pramata and Nandika, O Hara, Lord of the world, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world." By the way, Pramata and Nandika are attendants of Shiva. Oh, it goes on. Okay. O King of Kashi, that's Varanasi, Lord of the cremation ground of Manikarnika, O mighty hero, the destroyer of Daksha's sacrifice, the all-pervasive one, O Lord of hosts, omniscient one, who art the sole indweller in every heart, O Lord, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. O great God, compassionate one, O benign deity, O Vyomkara. Oh, what does that actually mean? Oh, it's the name of Shiva. Okay. Oh, Vyomkesha. Ah, Kesha has something to do with hair. A blue-throated one, O Lord of hosts. Thy body is smeared with ashes. Thou art garlanded with human skulls. Rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. O thou who dwells on Mount Kailash, thou whose carriest is the bull. O conqueror of death, O three-eyed one, Lord of the three worlds, beloved of Narayana, conqueror of lust, thou Shakti's Lord, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. Lord of the universe, refuge of the whole universe. O thou of infinite forms, soul of the universe. O thou in whom repose the infinite virtues of the world. O thou adored by the all-compassionate one, O friend of the poor, rescue me, helpless as I am, from the trackless forest of this miserable world. Master to Mahima, why do you call this world a deep well or a trackless forest? An aspirant may think so in the beginning, but how can he be frightened by the world if he holds fast to God? Then he finds that this very world is a mansion of mirth. Here I can eat, here drink, and make merry. Why should you be frightened? Hold fast to God. What if the world is like a forest of thorns? Put on shoes and walk on the thorns. Whom should you fear? You won't have to play again the part of the thief in the game of hide and seek if you touch the granny. Some game, okay. King Janaka used a fence with two swords, the one of knowledge and the other of action. Nothing can frighten an expert player. To M. My mind is still drawn to what he just recited. Sri Ramakrishna referred to the hymns chanted by Mahima. Navai Chaitanya and the other devotees began to sing. They were joined by the master who danced, drunk with divine love. Afterwards, he said, this is the one thing needful, the chanting of God's name. All else is unreal. Love and devotion alone are real. The other things are of no consequence. Later, Sri Ramakrishna went out in the direction of the Panchavati. He asked him about Binod, a student in M's school who now and then experienced ecstasy while thinking of God. The master loved him dearly. As he would return to his room, he said, well, some speak of me as an incarnation of God. What do you think about it? The master came back to the room and sat on a small couch. He repeated the question to M. The other devotees were seated at a distance and could not follow the conversation. Master, what do you say? M. I think so too. You are like Sri Chaitanya. Master, is it a full manifestation of God or a part? Tell me how much. M. I don't know, sir, but it is true that there is in you an incarnation of the divine power. There is no doubt that God alone dwells in you. Master, that is true. Chaitanya always also wanted to realize Shakti, the divine power. Narendra was engaged in a heated discussion. Ram, who had recently recovered from an illness, joined him. Master to M. I don't like such discussions. To Ram, will you stop that? You haven't been well. All right, go on softly, but don't get so excited. To M. I don't like these discussions. I used to weep and pray to the Divine Mother saying, oh, Mother, one man says it is this, while another one says it is that. Do thou tell me, oh, Mother, what is the truth? And now we're going to move into another day. So at this point, any questions, any problems, any interests? Okay, we'll move on to March 7th, 1885. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna was in his room at Dakshineshwar, conversing happily with his devotees. Babaram, the younger Nara, Paltu, Haripada, Mohini Mohan, and others were present. A young Brahmin had been staying with the master a few days. He was also there. The Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna's wife, was living in Nahabad. Occasionally, she would come to Sri Ramakrishna's room to attend to his needs. Mohini Mohan brought his wife. Oh, Mohini Mohan is just a pseudonym for M, the recorder of this gospel. Mohini Mohan had brought his wife and Nabin's mother with him to the temple garden from Calcutta. The ladies were with Holy Mother. They were waiting for an opportunity to visit the master when the men devotees would leave the room. Sri Krishna was sitting on the small couch. As he looked at the young devotees, his face beamed with joy. Rakhal was not then living at Dakshineshwar with the master. Since his return from Vrindavan, he had been living at home. The master smiling. Rakhal is now enjoying his pension. Since his return from Vrindavan, he's been staying at home. His wife is there. But he said to me that he would not accept any work, even if he were offered a salary of 1,000 rupees. Rakhal would lie down here and say to me that he didn't care even for my company. He was then passing through such an exalted state. Pavanath is married, but he spends his whole night in spiritual conversations with his wife. The couple passed their time talking of God alone. I said to him, have a little fun with your wife now and then. What? He said, he retorted angrily. Shall we too indulge in frivolity? Shamakrishna began to talk about Narendra, master to the devotees. I haven't felt the same longing for the younger Naren that I felt for Narendra. To Haripada, did you go to Girish Ghosh's house? Haripada, yes, I go there very often. He is our neighbor. Master, does Narendra too go there? Haripada, yes, I see him there occasionally. Master, what does he say in reply to Girish? Girish Ghosh was speaking of Shamakrishna as an incarnation of God. Haripada, Narendra has been defeated in the argument. Master, no. Narendra says Girish Ghosh has such strong faith. Why should I contradict him? The brother of the judge, Anakal Mukhopadhyay's son-in-law, was in the room. The master said to him, do you know Narendra? Brother, yes, sir. He's a very intelligent young man. Master, to the devotees, he must be a good man because he speaks highly of Narendra. Narendra was here the other day and sang with Trilokya Sanyal, but that day his singing seemed flat to me. Babaram was a student at the entrance class in the school where M taught. Master to Babaram, where are your books? Aren't you attending to your studies? To M, he wants to stick to both, that is, both God and the world. That is very difficult. What will you gain by knowing God partially? Vashishtadeva, a great sage that he was overcome at the death of his sons. That amazed Lakshmana and asked Rama the reason. Rama said, brother, what is there to wonder at? One who has knowledge has ignorance as well. Brother, go beyond both knowledge and ignorance. If a thorn enters the sole of your foot, you get another thorn to take out the first one. Afterwards, you can throw both away. Likewise, one procures the thorn of knowledge to remove the thorn of ignorance. Then one goes beyond both knowledge and ignorance. Babaram smiling. That's what I want. Master smiling, but my child, can you attain it by holding to both? If you want that, then come away. Babaram smiling. Take me away from the world. Master to M. Rakhal lives with me, but that was different. His father agreed to it. But these boys stay here. If these boys stay here, there'll be trouble. To Babaram, you have no strength of mind. You haven't much courage. Just see how the younger Naren says, I will come away for good. Shivakrishna came down from the small couch and sat among the youngsters on the floor. M was by his side. Master to M, I have been seeking one who is totally renounced lust and greed. When I find a young man, I think that perhaps he will live with me, but everyone raises some objection or another. A ghost sought a companion. It is said that a man who dies on Saturday or Tuesday becomes a ghost. Therefore, whenever the ghost saw anybody fall from a roof or stumble and faint on the road, on either of those days, he would run to him, hoping that the man would have an accidental death and would become a ghost and his companion. But such was his ill luck that everyone revived. The poor thing could not get a companion. Just see, Rakhal always gives his wife as an excuse. He says, what will become of her? I have touched Narendra on the chest. When I touched Narendra on the chest, he became unconscious. Then he cried out, oh, what have you done to me? Don't you know that I have a father and a mother? Why has God made me lead this kind of life? Chaitanya became a sannyasi so that all would salute him. Whoever salutes an incarnation even once attains liberation. Whoa. Mohini Mohan had brought a basket of sweetmeats for Sri Krishna. That's him. Master, who brought these sweets? Balaram pointed to Mohini Mohan. Shamakrishna retouched the sweets, uttering the word Om, and ate a little. Then he distributed them among the devotees. To the surprise of others, he fed the younger Naren and a few of the boys with his own hand. Master to M. This has a meaning. There is a greater manifestation of God in people of pure heart. In his former years, I used to go to Kamarpur. I would feed some of the young boys with my own hand. Chinni Shankari would say, why doesn't he feed us that way? But how could I? They led an immoral life. Who would feed them? Shamakrishna was in his happiest mood with the young and pure-souled devotees. He was seated on the small couch and doing funny imitations of a kirtani. That's a woman kirtan singer. The devotees laughed heartily. The kirtani is dressed lavishly and covered with ornaments. She sings, standing on the floor, a colored kerchief in her hand. Now and then she coughs to draw people's attention, and she blows her nose, raising her nose ring. When a respectable gentleman enters the room, she welcomes him with the appropriate words, still continuing her song. Now and then she pulls her sari from her arms to show off her other jewels. The devotees were convulsed with laughter at this mimicry by Sri Krishna. Paltu rolled on the ground. Pointing to him, the master said to him, look at this child, he's rolling with laughter. He said to Paltu with a smile, don't report this to your father. He will lose the little respect he has for me. You see, he is an Englishman. That means he's English educated. Master to the devotees. These are people who indulge in all kinds of gossip at the time of their daily devotion. Oh, there are people who indulge in all kinds of gossip at the time of their daily devotions. As you know, one is not permitted to talk then. They make all kinds of signs, keeping their lips closed. In order to say, bring this, bring that, they make sounds like or All such things they do, laughter. As they count the rosary with a finger, they point out the fish, indicating that one, please. They all reserve their business for that time, laughter. And that is a good place to stop. So we've just got a couple minutes. Anyone, any questions, any problems? Arguments? Complaining about the heat? Everyone okay? Thumbs up? Good to know. It looks like you're saying something, Amrita.
I didn't say a thing for a change.
I'm sorry.
I did not say a thing.
I'm hearing thing.
I didn't say anything.
Okay, it looked like you were talking, so. Okay, then let us conclude with a chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Stay cool, everyone. This coming Wednesday, of course, the Gospel of Holy Mother, then Saturday, a gospel reading, and this Sunday, no lectures here, but there are plenty at the Banana Society. So take your pick. Okay, see you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us.